So in my journey of going from hurt to healed, I realized that people who have hurt me along the way, whether intentional or not, have their own paths that they have been going on and their own hurts as well. So someone in particular that I've had an interesting journey with is my grandmother on my mother's side. So I've talked about her a little bit where, we've had some bumps in the road when it comes to our relationship. And I think the main thing with her is that I thought when my great grandmother passed, which was her mother, that she would come in and be like how my great grandmother was to me. Sorry, camera. Okay. So it was just very interesting that instead of it being a loving relationship like I thought it was going to be, it was just hurt. And it was a hurt that I didn't feel before because I had always been around people who treated me a different way. So as I got older, I really resented her, and as time went on, I stopped speaking to her for about 10 years. Like once I hit 18 and I was out of my mother's house and I knew that, I just felt like I didn't have to come back to anything, I cut ties. And in me doing that for almost 10 years, I was okay with it. But then I just realized that anytime I heard her name or anybody spoke about her, I would still get very upset. So I'd say, I'm not done dealing with this. Like, this is something else. I'm going to have to deal with this. And I just took my time until I felt emotionally okay to at least start dealing with it. And then I got pregnant with my son. So in getting pregnant with him, I didn't want to have it where he didn't have access to family members, regardless of, what happened with me. Because I know that happened to me and I didn't want to do the same thing. So I started letting her back into our life, birthday parties and just little things like that. But everything changed in August of 2017 when I happened to go by and visit her. And at that time I got to speak to my grandmother and let her know, like, listen, I know I haven't spoken to you all these years, but it was because I did not want to be disrespectful because I knew I didn't have anything nice to say. And I didn't want to say something that I couldn't take back. Sorry. I didn't want to say something that I couldn't take back, so I just, kept my distance. So, we discussed it and everything, and it was me, her, and my sisters because they've had a very interesting relationship with her too. And we all said that we would work on making things better. So it didn't work for all of us. Everybody has their own thing, but I'm talking about my perspective and my story. So in that time, I actually started hanging out with my grandmother a little bit. We started talking on the phone a lot. And she did try to mend, our relationship before I did in 2017. But I just didn't believe her, because if somebody puts your hand in a fire and it's hot, you're not going to believe them again when they say, oh, no, give me your hand, let me try it again, it's not going to be this hot this time, or it's not going to burn you this time, so I didn't really trust her at that time. But this time was different. So I remember picking her up and I took her to the mall and we just hung out for a few hours, just walked around the stores with her, took her out to get something to eat. And she was actually telling the waitresses and stuff oh yeah, this is my grandchild and my great grandchild. I had one of my daughters with me. So I got to see that it was a difference. And, as I saw that our relationship was growing and getting a bit better, I did talk to her about it and say, I didn't feel like you even wanted me around. I felt like a second-class citizen, like I was always visiting. And she's like, oh no, you shouldn't have felt like that. And I'm like, but I did, So she said something really valuable to me that I took as her way of apologizing. And she said, when you know better, you do better. And I didn't know any better. That was enough for me. She didn't need to specifically say, I'm sorry for da-da-da-da-da, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, my mother plays a part in it as well because, my mother put me in that situation and didn't check on my comfort and make sure that I was okay. But that's a whole nother story. So now my grandmother and I, we speak maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I get really busy and I may not be able to speak to her, but she calls me. She called me last night and we spoke for a few, just checking on me and the kids and the weather and telling me about her day, typical stuff. And we may not have the traditional a grandmother granddaughter relationship, you know, where it's like, oh, it's summertime, you know, I want to go and hang with my grandma, or it's the holidays, I want to go hang with my grandma. But we have something. And at the end of the day, she's the only grandparent that I have left now. My grandfather passed away, and on my father's side, my grandparents passed away years ago. So I am glad that we got to mend things, and I am glad that my kids know her, and we have pictures together. So, you know, if they ever ask, I can say, yeah, you remember Nana. So I just wanted to share that, because I'm sure I'm not the only person that has gone through this type of stuff. You know, it's hard to give love when you've never gotten any, or, you know, whatever you got that you thought was love was not, and you didn't realize it wasn't. So you live your life off of what you got, and it winds up affecting others. So I'm very, very grateful that God allowed us some time to be able to mend our ways, because my family, I call my family the family of 20s. My mother had me when she was 20, and my grandmother had my mother when she was 20. So we're 40, 60, 80. It's a lot of time, you know, for me to not speak to her for 10 years. You know, like, I can't get that 10 years back. But I did what was best for me. You know, that was something that I learned a long time ago as I got older. I said, I have to do what's best for me. I can't worry about what's best for everybody else. And even after doing that and giving people time that they didn't deserve, and caring and loving and attention and other things that they didn't deserve, I realized, like, I got to worry about me. So now, like I said, we have a relationship. It's better than what it was, and I'm grateful for it. I'm glad we have something. But, you know, if you're going through something similar, just really, really think about it, and really, really do what's best for you. And it's okay if you don't want to ever have a relationship with the person again. That's okay. You know, you have to worry about the wellness of your mental. Nobody else. You have to worry about that, and you have to make sure that you're okay. And it's okay to tell somebody that they cannot rent any space in your life. It is what it is, right?